first I want to say welcome everyone. It's nice to see everybody. Thank you for coming. Um, so today I'll be discussing some ways of some simple techniques for encouraging student participation, especially in an online setting. So first we'd like to sort of just talk about in terms of the breakdown. In the sense, we look at this idea of what do we mean by participation? What is it that we want to get out of our students? Some tips, and then hopefully, if time permits, maybe an example of something that I've used in my class before in order to help encourage student participation. Okay. So what does participation mean in online lectures or in office hours? So in a sense, when we examine this question, it's really a matter of, what is it that you want to get out of your students, or what is it that you're expecting from your students? So for some, participation can simply mean, hey, just raise your hand and just say something. Others, it might be, well, could you answer this question or provide your viewpoint on this idea? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, sorry. Was that something or? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I just saw the note. Yeah. So, yeah, it depending on, everybody's going to have a their own sort of idea and definition of what they mean by participation. So let's I guess quickly brainstorm together. So maybe what are some things that you don't like, or things that you found that maybe have frustrated you, especially in this online setting? So for me personally, when you open up and start a lecture, everybody's got their cameras off, for instance, right? That's something that definitely inhibits participation. Was there other things that people have experienced that found sort of just,
Yeah, well, it basically stems from that they have the camera off and you don't know if they're listening.
Yeah,
so you don't know if you're talking to a wall. I get sometimes I'm like, you ask a question, so they do participate, and then nobody answers. And sometimes you ask silly questions, so you make sure that they are listening. And then nobody answers again, and you're like, is anybody out there? Did you hear my question?
Right, exactly.
You feel as if you're talking to a wall. Yeah.
Exactly, or just a blank screen, right? And it's just like you ask, are there any questions? And then just the sea of silence. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely some things that that we've had to overcome, especially in this in this online setting. I think it even exacerbates it even more in an online setting than it does, face to face. So some tips that I've found that have worked for me. Now, of course, this is not by any means a definitive list. Everyone's going to have their own sort of way of how they gauge their audience, and that's great. So some tips that I found is, for instance, if you rush, your students were not going to be able to participate. So if you're just clicking through slides rapidly just to get to the very end, saying everything is obvious and trivial, right? You're not going to really have give that sort of space for students to really interact with you, and to really gauge them and see if they understand the concepts and the ideas. If they feel uncomfortable, they will not engage with you. If students feel that the environment is hostile or judgmental, especially in an online setting, they'll hide behind, their cameras. And, if there's no culture of participation, they'll feel awkward about participating. So, for instance, rushing through, your students won't be able to participate. So good organization really does save time, and it allows you to really give that sort of platform for your students to participate. So whether it's after presenting a definition, you sort of, give an example, maybe ask your students to maybe provide another example, or maybe getting their opinion about a passage that you're presenting. Just finding places for them to participate, is, helps in not only, getting your message across, but really sort of eases that tension that might students might sort of, or apprehension that students might experience when they're trying to, especially feel, if they, if they're comfortable in participating or not. So being able to select such places is important in a lecture. If they feel uncomfortable, they will not engage with you. So this is one thing that I've definitely, learned and I'm still working on, right? It's learning to work with what you have, so us being in an online setting, right? There are things obviously that we're not able to do that, that we were able to do in a face-to-face atmosphere, right? Especially being able to have that interaction with students. But,
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but being able to work with what you have is also really important. I mean, so if you come in and you're just sort of just drained and just like your facial expressions are not just sort of engaged in the lesson, and if you're giving off this vibe that you just don't want to be online, that really permeates to students, and that will definitely cause them to not be, engaged in the lecture. So for me personally, what I've also tried to do is use the strengths of online classes, and there are several. So for instance, I've been using animations, employing maybe like videos to present a concept or to get something more across that you wouldn't be able to do if you had like a piece of chalk and a chalkboard in front of you, especially in a subject that I work in mathematics. And this idea of priming the pump, so this sort of expression mainly, us as educators, have to try and provide a stimulating atmosphere so that students feel comfortable enough to engage with us and present their ideas or ask questions and so on and so forth. So if they feel the environment is hostile or judgmental, they will hide. So, quick solution to this is just to be supportive, so if you pose a question or an idea, if the student says, oh, is the answer 5, if you say, oh, it's 7, I can't believe, you didn't get it, you need to go back and reread the material. Oh, you're just never going to get it. When that sort of engagement happens, then the student's going to be like, I'm just going to hide behind my camera, and I think I'm just going to just stay quiet for the rest of the term. So being able to offer that support really helps. So even if they give an answer that's completely off, you can use phrases like, okay, that's interesting. How did you get to that? Or, oh, okay, well, did you think of this? Or maybe consider this instead. So in a sense, gauge them in a way to where they feel like, okay, even if my answer is completely wrong, I at least know that I'm getting that constructive criticism and that feedback so that I know how to get to hopefully the correct answer. So if there's no culture of participation, again, students will feel awkward about participation. So priming the pump early on, so creating that atmosphere where they feel comfortable to asking questions and engaging with you. Now, of course, depending on the class that you teach, everyone's got a different sense. So, one might use breakout rooms, one might use, say, icebreakers at the very beginning of class, just to get them more comfortable with the atmosphere so that they feel that, they can present their ideas and share their ideas without being, judged upon. See, it's a clear, it's a very thin line that students at times feel between being challenged and just being, just in hostility. In a sense, we want to feel, we really want to be more in the camp of challenging students' ideas so that they, they learn to develop and grow as mature individuals, as opposed to where they feel, every idea that they present, they're just going to be met with a hostile reaction. So here's an example. So we look at this right here, right? Okay, given some sort of way to write points on a sphere. So you have some angle theta and phi. So theta is your longitude, phi is your latitude. So if you look at longitude is this way, latitude is this way. So if you take something like this and you just throw it at your students, right? I mean, this is very intimidating, right? This notation is just all over the place. What do these symbols even mean? Oh my goodness, what do you mean computing what are called Christoffel symbols, and these are in itself very, very cumbersome to compute, let alone then trying to solve this set of equations. You got these things roaming around, these weird symbols. How is it that I can apply this stuff? What's going on here? So what you're trying to do in this case is you're trying to look for what are called geodesics, which are, roughly speaking, it's finding the shortest path between 2 points. So presenting something like this to students, they automatically, most students will just disengage. However, what you can do is you can turn the problem around, and what I did is the following. So suppose you're on a game show, right? You just want a trip to anywhere around the world. So where would you like to go? So somebody give me a location. Anywhere.
Tokyo, Japan.
Tokyo, beautiful, thank you. Right. So here we go. We have our world, and here we are. Here is Cairo. So you'll have to excuse my geography skills. This is why I'm a mathematician and not a cartographer. So Tokyo, maybe somewhere over here. Okay. So it turns out that when you have 2 points on a sphere, right, there's this thing called a great circle that exists between them. Okay. So roughly speaking, you can see how great my drawing skills are, right? Roughly speaking, this great circle, so imagine you got like a Chinese lantern and you just cut through it, right, with a knife. The intersection of that knife and the lantern is going to give you this circle. Now, if we take this circle and peel this apart, right? So if we have this case here, so here is Cairo. So Cairo. And by the way, this actually works a lot better with animations. And this is one of these places where implementing animations from online really helps to bring that idea to students. But due to the time constraints, I'm just gonna just draw this out. So if we look at this right here, we have an arc here, and we have an arc here. Okay, so out of these 2 arcs, this blue one and this yellow one, which one's shorter?
Yellow.
The yellow arc, right? So very good. So what you've done here is you've visually drawn out the distance between 2 points. So in fact, air travel today works like this. So in a sense, now the question might be, well, how do you know that you can find such a circle? And this is what this problem presents. So now, just by asking you, where do you want to go? Which arc is longer? Which one is shorter? I've gotten you engaged in the problem. So now you're thinking about the problem. So in that sense, you're more likely, because now you've seen the problem in a more layman sense, you're more likely encouraged to try out something as more complicated as this. Whereas if I just threw this problem at you from the beginning, it becomes it's very intimidating, and it's very easy to disengage. So at the end of the day, is there a certain set of tools that, that works for everyone? No. But, this is something that, you'll have to gauge your audience on, and depending on how you get that sort of feedback from your audience, you'll see the best ways to implement ways to encourage participation to get the most out of your students. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the symposium. Sorry if I went a little bit past time.
No, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any questions?
No, I teach accounting, so I can understand maths.
Right.
I think maths is more difficult though.
Right.
But I can understand, it's not psychology, which is interesting. Well, no, not that accounting is not interesting. I find it very interesting. Okay, but you have to pass it. I found this way that you do it very interesting. Yeah, the engagement. Yeah, it was interesting talking to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be something layman's terms. I mean, you can even relate it back to a movie or to a play, just something to where it becomes tangible for students to see. Yeah, as you were saying, exactly.